This is the story of Brian Shaffer, who vanished inside a bar. How did he do it? Before we answer that question, we need to get to know Brian. Brian was born in 1978. He grew up in the USA with his parents and sister. When he turned 23, he enrolled at Ohio State University to study business. But while studying there, he dropped out to join his father's company, which specialized in heating and cooling systems. There he worked until 2004, when he started working at Nationwide Insurance as an IT project manager. On the side, Brian also worked as a DJ. His friends described him as a fun-loving guy who was always smiling. So everyone was surprised when he suddenly disappeared without a trace. On April 1st, 2006, Brian drove from his home in Westerville to his workplace in the short North Arts district of Columbus, Ohio. There he spent some time working before leaving for a bar called Mikey's Late Night, a popular place frequented by young professionals after work. It was around 7:30 p.m. when Brian walked into the bar alone. The owner greeted him warmly because he was a regular customer. He loved hanging out at the bar and would often chat with the staff and other customers. According to surveillance footage, Brian sat down at his favorite spot at the end of the bar near the restrooms. After Brian sat down, the bartender went to clean some glasses. Then she noticed a man sitting next to Brian, trying to strike up a conversation. She didn't pay much attention to them. As she returned to cleaning the glasses, she heard Brian laughing. And just like that, Brian vanished. When the bartender turned around, she noticed that the man who was sitting next to Brian was now standing next to her, asking where the bathroom was. Startled, she responded, "Right there," pointing to the restroom. The man thanked her and walked towards it. He was wearing a white shirt, dark jeans, and black shoes. He had short dark hair, was about 6 feet tall, and weighed 180 pounds. However, nobody knows who he is or how he disappeared along with Brian. A few minutes after the man left, the bartender noticed something odd. Brian's wallet, cell phone, and keys were on the bar. Concerned, she checked on him and saw that he was missing. At first, she thought he might have gone to the restroom, but he hadn't. Next, she tried calling his cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Panicked, she immediately called the police. The police arrived at the bar and launched an extensive investigation, but it soon hit a wall. They could unfind any witnesses who had seen Brian leave the bar, and his car was still parked in the same spot. To make matters worse, the surveillance footage was grainy and didn't show anything conclusive. It showed Brian sitting at the bar, but it didn't capture what happened next. And here's why. As it turned out, the owner of the bar had set up the cameras in such a way that they only recorded footage when motion was detected. Unfortunately, the camera was unpositioned correctly, and the motion sensor was triggered by people walking into the bar or using the restroom. That's why the footage started recording right as Brian sat down and ended right as the mysterious man stood up. Moreover, because the bar was packed that evening, most people had blocked the camera's view, and none of them noticed anything suspicious. To understand how Brian vanished, let's analyze the available evidence. First, let's talk about Brian's behavior. He was a regular at the bar and knew his way around. He would often hang out there after work and chat with the staff and other customers. So it was not out of character for him to go to Mikey's Late Night and spend some time there. Brian was also a fun-loving guy who was always smiling. He didn't seem to have any enemies, and his family and friends were baffled by his disappearance. Next, let's look at the physical evidence. Brian's wallet, cell phone, and keys were found on the bar, suggesting that he didn't leave voluntarily. Additionally, his car was still parked in the same spot, indicating that he didn't leave in his car. The police also found no evidence that Brian had been in a fight or had taken anyone's belongings. This ruled out the possibility that he had been the victim of a robbery or assault. Finally, let's examine the available footage. Brian was seen sitting at his usual spot at the end of the bar. A man was seen sitting next to him, but nothing else. The man was described as being about 6 feet tall and weighing 180 pounds. He had short dark hair and was wearing a white shirt, dark jeans, and black shoes. He appeared to be in his late 20s or early 30s. Unfortunately, the footage does not provide any further clues about his identity or what happened next. Investigators believe that the key to solving this case lies in identifying the man in the footage. They think that he may have played a role in Brian's disappearance. Are the top 3 theories about what happened to him. Number 3, abduction. One theory is that the man abducted Brian. However, there's no evidence to support this claim. In fact, everything points to the contrary. If Brian had been abducted, his abductors would have needed to restrain him in order to get him into their vehicle. It's unlikely that they would have left his wallet, cell phone, and keys behind. Additionally, there's no evidence that Brian was in any danger prior to his disappearance. He was seen laughing prior to the man approaching him, suggesting that he was in good spirits. Furthermore, if the man had forced Brian into a waiting vehicle, it's likely that someone would have noticed. The parking lot was full of cars, and there were several witnesses in the area. The fact that no one saw anyone driving away suggests that Brian was not abducted. No. 2. Voluntary departure. Another theory is that Brian left voluntarily with the man. However, this claim doesn't hold up either. If Brian had left voluntarily, he wouldn't have left his belongings behind. It's possible that he misplaced them, but it's more likely that he intentionally left them behind. This suggests that Brian didn't plan to return. This is also supported by the fact that his car was still parked in the same spot. If he had left voluntarily, he would have taken his car or arranged for someone to pick him up. The fact that he didn't do any of these things suggests that he didn't intend to come back. No one, intoxication. The final theory is that Brian became intoxicated and wandered off. This theory is supported by the fact that Brian was seen drinking at the bar prior to his disappearance. Additionally, he was known to enjoy a good time and could have easily gotten carried away. It's possible that he became so intoxicated that he forgot where he was or who he was with. He could have followed a stranger into a restroom stall or elevator and never made it out. In fact, this is the only theory that makes sense given the available evidence. Brian's car was still parked in the same spot, suggesting that he didn't leave voluntarily. His belongings were on the bar, suggesting that he didn't leave with any signs of struggle or foul play. The fact that the bar was busy that night means that there were plenty of opportunities for Brian to have slipped out unnoticed. But where could he have gone? Brian was last seen wearing a gray t-shirt, blue jeans, and brown boots. He was carrying a silver briefcase and a black backpack. He is 5 feet 9 inches tall and weighs 160 pounds. He has brown hair and hazel eyes. Brian has a tattoo of a cross on his left shoulder blade and a scar on his left knee. If you have any information about his whereabouts, please contact the authorities immediately. Thank you for watching.